This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. Man like King Gad, he's got the vape. He's a busy man. He's going into London today. But of course, he's making time first for a little interview. How are you, mate?
I'm good. I was prompted to vape, so I just thought I'd do it for your entertainment.
That's the
You wanted
thumbnail
it.
sorted. We
That's
always
yeah,
like
exactly.
I have to
Um,
say, just before we jump straight into it, I was slightly jealous when I see you doing a bit with Lewis now, or maybe Umar, because the vape started with me, Gareth, and now they're progressing through the scene.
no, I think the vape started well before you. Because a year ago I was still smoking and I was scrounging cigarettes off you in
In
Jeddah.
Saudi.
And
Yes.
yeah, and when you were, I think you were 14 then or something. And I nicknamed you Cheeky Charlie Parsons. That's where Cheeky started, and you're still Cheeky Charlie Parsons, and you're doing very well. But I think it's the first time you've interviewed me in my office.
I think it may be. Actually, no, I think the second time, but
Is it?
the first
Okay, well,
time
anyway,
before
well,
that.
it's been a
Yes.
while, but no, don't ever be jealous about things like that.
Let's jump into it. We have the absolute monster tonight. One that all boxing fans have wanted for years and years and years. Spence Crawford, Crawford Spence, however you want to put it. Just firstly, um, does it feel real yet?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been here this week, not in Vegas. Ordinarily, we'd probably both be in Vegas. Times have changed a little bit. I'm doing a broadcast tonight from Talk Sports, a normal fight night show, as opposed to being there. Talk Sports doing a broadcast later. Spencer Oliver and Alex Steedman are going to do the fight. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, I do believe it. It's a big fight. I was actually thinking back to covering Terence Crawford, and Ricky Burns didn't know what he was, and we didn't know what he was back in 2014. It was in Glasgow. You really were at primary school then, I think.
I think,
well, so it was like, well, 9 years or 10 years ago, anyway, and nearly 10 years ago. And Crawford was amazing that night and befuddled and bewildered Ricky Burns, who was not the most complex of boxers, but a very durable, very hard man, of course, is a Scottish boxing and British boxing legend. But we had a really good look at Crawford that night, and look how he's grown in the last 9 years. And this is the culmination of two fantastic careers. They're 33 and 35. Spence 33 and Crawford 35. You have to double take when you think that Crawford's 35, frankly, but he's not weather worn. Neither of them are really weather worn. Obviously, Bud's had an incredible kind of narrative arc that's like a Hollywood movie, being shot at after leaving a betting place one night. And Errol Spence we've all seen it. If you haven't seen the video of his car tumbling, go and watch it, because God only knows how he walked away alive from that and is there today undefeated in whatever it is, 29, is it?
yeah.
Yeah, nearly 70 fights between them, undefeated. They're still in their prime, these two, undefeated. I think it's the first undisputed welterweight four-belt era fight. All of those things. It's Vegas, it's history. You should definitely be there. I mean, I've been there many times over 27 years, I think it is, since I went to my first Vegas fight. And you miss some of them for commercial, financial reasons. But it's an amazing fight. I'm thinking about it every half an hour at the moment today. I mean, I've got to go into London and do the show in a minute. We'll be talking about it all night, and other things. But really, really looking forward to it. Looking forward to scoring it as well.
Yes. Yes.
With pen and pad, and because it won't surprise me if it splits everyone, this fight. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a controversial split draw, split decision, very close fight, people disagreeing on the rounds. I think it's going to come down to the last 4 rounds between them. I don't think anyone's getting stopped in this fight. I've always had the feeling, Charlie, that this rivalry between them and it is so brilliant that they are such gentlemen fighters, and there's no in-your-face stuff, that they may well have 3 fights. This might be the last 3 fights of their career against each other, and they might go up, do 2 at 147, and then maybe 1 at 154, so they're more comfortable, both of them. But it's something to behold. I mean, you've read the column I wrote in the Telegraph today. I pinged that over to you, and like you told me to do the vape. We did prepare for this one today, but
we have prepared.
It hasn't ignited in the mainstream like it could have, would have, should have, maybe. But maybe that's the second and third fight.
Yeah. Is that a reflection maybe on the state of affairs in boxing at the minute?
It's a reflection on the state of the world, the paradigm shift towards viral moments. Neither of them are given to screaming from the rooftops like town criers that they're fighting and what they're going to do to the other, that they're going to smash each other's faces in, they're going to do this, that, and the other. This is an aesthetically pleasing fight, and it's been an aesthetically pleasing build-up for the boxing purist. There's all kinds of weird shenanigans going on around boxing with, kingpin, misfits, tag team boxing, all this kind of stuff. And so when you look at why pure boxers as well, like Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis did probably, I think, the biggest pay-per-view of the year so far, isn't it?
Yeah.
They did it probably because there was a lot of aggro. They did do a media tour. They did do more than one city. They have got 10.8 million and 5.8 million followers respectively, Garcia and Davis, on Instagram. All those things play into it, all those factors. Whereas these two, it's always been tough getting anything out of them that is attritional towards other people. They do their work in the ring, and you have to applaud them for that.
I think it's probably fair to say that tonight will be one for the absolute boxing purists. And like you say, if they decide to go again down the line, like you say, maybe 2, maybe 3, that's where it could heat up, and maybe the attention gets brought out a little bit more from the other demographics when clips are being replayed of the first fight, stories are being told of how great it is.
Controversy. If there's controversy tonight, if Spence is absolutely nailed down that he won, or Crawford's nailed down in his mind that he won, but the other guy gets it, they won't be happy about it. Then we start to light the fire under it. Not we, but what the fire is lit under it, because neither of them's ever lost. They don't know what defeat is like. So in a weird way, if we get a split draw, they've just got to do it again, haven't they? But it will be bigger the next time. I think it's been big in our microcosm, in our lane.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a. I was on Al Jazeera earlier talking to them about it, about this kind of, maybe it isn't a crossover fight for the Gen Z generation, these are 2 guys not in their 20s. Remember, they're in their 30s, and they're not going to be dragged out of shape to sell it. I mean, they've waited a long time to have this fight. I mean, Crawford's been a welterweight world champion for 5 years, hasn't he? Seven fights at welterweight in championship terms. He stopped all his opponents. Yeah, that's remarkable. Spence looks naturally like the bigger man, but I tell you what, I watched them the weigh-in again. Every tiny little muscle on them looks so similar. They've got such similar bodies, haven't they? It's extraordinary.
Gareth, let me ask you, I mentioned it off camera. Spence has only fought twice since 2020. He fights with Danny Garcia and Ugas, and we know that obviously the accident and everything. Crawford goes into this fight as the slight favourite. I think probably fair. Is there a chance that, with Spence being out of the ring for 15, 16 months, Crawford also not massively active, but a little bit more so than Spence, is there a chance that could be the deciding factor in the fight?
Yeah, maybe, but look, you can't rule out the car crash as part of the inactivity for Spence. That required some serious recovery, didn't it? And him getting seriously checked afterwards. And thank God he is fine. And maybe maybe that happened for a reason. You know, your Dennis Ugas, and who was the other one he's fought?
Danny Garcia.
Danny Garcia. Look, Danny Garcia's, you know, probably a little bit over the hill, but these are all. I remember a time, by the way, just digressing, when Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, and these two were in there, all in their pomp, like 4 years ago. I remember Tom Hauser, Muhammad Ali's biographer, asked a few of us to fill out this grid. It was about 3 or 4 years ago for Ring Magazine, some contributors to Ring Magazine, and I remember putting down Spence beating all of them, Crawford beating all the others. But when it came to those two, I think I put split draw then.
Wow.
You know, I couldn't divide them. That was 3-4 years ago. I agree with you on Bud Crawford being a marginal favourite. Yeah, they've been a little bit inactive, but you can count COVID in that. You can count the car accident. You can look. You might even say, you know, the fact that Crawford's fought Khan and Brook. That those two were well past their best when he fought them, but they were still big fights, you know. So look, they both fought Sean Porter. They haven't missed many opponents who are up and coming, you know. So
would it be fair to perhaps say that at 147? Spence has more of the resume. I mean, we know how good.
Yeah, a little bit, marginally. Yeah. When you look at the resume, if you give it the eye test, you go, oh yeah. But then you can say, but Crawford stopped Porter.
Yeah.
But Spence didn't. And I think you get a sense from Porter that, and he was a little bit more worn by then. You get the sense from Porter that he won't pick particularly, but you get a sense that he feels that Crawford's more dangerous.
Do you think that's because you look at that knockout and how sort of Terence was able to just switch up? People almost feel that he's just got that little bit more.
Yeah, but I think Crawford might be hit harder than he's ever been hit before tonight.
Yeah.
And I think Spence is going to be hit by a guy who finds openings that no one else against him has really found yet. So all of these factors, I'm starting to get hairs on the back of my neck standing up now. All these factors, if they both box to their absolute fistic best, and it will be chess masters at work tonight on the board, well, I think we're just in for a classic. And I think it will come down, if it is really tight, to those final 2 or 3 rounds, maybe the last 2, maybe in the last round, and see what, you know, how deep into the trenches they can go.
Gareth, just lastly on this fight as a whole, this is actually a question like I'm genuinely interested to know, and I'm sure maybe the viewers will. They might have a bit more of an understanding of the MMA market. A lot of my friends tonight are looking forward to the UFC card tonight, big card.
Oh, me too as well.
Yeah. How do you think that will affect the viewing figures, having to obviously a monster UFC bout clashing with a monster boxing bout? Seem to be the only person in my friendship group only interested in Spence Crawford tonight. I get it, like we've said, it's a little bit more niche. There's not as much aggro in the build-up, not the press tour, not the followers involved. Do you think that UFC card can affect the fight tonight?
Yeah, I suppose it can. I mean, Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are two. They're both fan pleasers. They're both fan favorites. Look, Poirier got eviscerated by Conor McGregor. I was at the fight in Vegas many years ago when that happened. Conor McGregor was on a stellar rise at the time. I think that was at featherweight, actually. Yeah, that was at featherweight. Poirier's got the 2 victories over Conor McGregor. Neither of them have held a lightweight belt, only the interim. So there isn't even a belt on the line tonight. They're both bad motherfuckers, you know. Well, that's the belt, isn't it?
The BMF,
the bad motherfucker belt tonight. So I'm obviously presented there at the weigh-in or the press conference with Jorge Masvidal with them this week. I know both men personally. In fact, the last time I saw Justin Gaethje, I think I bought his dinner in New York, because we sat down at a bar together. I think his dinner was $90. He had about 5 plates. But it was lovely to see him. He's an extraordinary character. You know, he's a twin, yeah?
No.
Yeah, he's a twin. And his mum, dad, his brother, they all work in the a mining They live in a small mining town of 10,000 people,
Wow.
and they all work in the mine. Yeah, his mum drives a truck, his dad drives a truck, his brother does digging, and he's going to be a social worker with kids when he retires. You know, he's an extraordinary guy. If you've never seen him fight, this is maybe what I'm showing to you, that he just lets his hands go. He's unbelievable. They've both got a lot of miles on the clock. Poirier is the diamond. There's a great docu on him called Fightville, with him growing up in Louisiana years ago. I think it's Louisiana, and he's he's such a cool dude. And I've been around him many times, and it's a fantastic fight. It's like it's like two guys going to an old kind of saloon bar. It's that kind of fight, and only two men enter, one man's going to leave. You know, so yeah, it will draw a lot of eyeballs on the night. Yes, it is a bit of competition for the bout. I do think it still hasn't it still hasn't affected the fact that Spence and Crawford isn't a mainstream crossover fight. We are all when I'm pitching to my editors, when I was pitching to Talk Sport to have us there, I'm saying this is a very, very big fight. But the world's changing. Everyone's in their lane a little bit more. And this is what I mean about there's this shift going on that, listen, if they had thrown fish at each other, if they had to see what mention what I've seen this week, or they had a Charlo Plant moment.
Oh yes, God, I forgot to ask you about that. How mad?
Yeah, we just don't need to. It's just stupid, isn't it? It's just stupid. But you know, it makes fights, and it goes viral, and you know, we're in a very viral time of viral things. So if it had that, it might have crossed over. But Al Jazeera's covering it. Talk Sport's doing it live tonight. There's massive interest. Everything I've seen from Vegas. When you're in there, as you now know, because you've been a few times, when you're in that microcosm, it feels enormous.
It feels massive. Yeah.
It feels massive. And so it's nice to see it from the outside sometimes, and see what's resonating. I can normally tell when I'm inside it what the interest is like from outside by how many radio slots I need to do in the week, how many columns I'm writing, whether BBC, Talk Sport, ITV, news channels are chasing you for stuff, whether you know just that international brigade that's there in terms of the news of it. You always used to feel that around Manny Pacquiao, and you know whether a different swathe of Asian reporters were in all these things. So when I've seen it from there, it looks big. You know, the weigh-in was well attended. The workouts by the sports book looked well attended. There's a lot of characters in and around it. It looks really good, and I think everything about it is very polished. We just need the two main protagonists to step up and deliver tonight now, and I think they will, because they both look very cool, calm, and collected. And it's one of those where you just there's so much. I have so much admiration for them both.
Yeah.
You know, as an observer,
I like the handshake at the weigh-in.
Yeah, and also
it happen.
Exactly. And thank you, brother, for making it happen back and forth. And these are the moments that you know, for all the crap that's discussed about, and he said, she said, and the moaning, you know, the trolls, the hating, this is a fans fight. And if you're involved in the sport, you can't not be excited. And what I'm trying to say is, what we're doing with this is just trying to project it as much as we can. And from my experience of things, the second fight will be bigger.
Yeah.
But it's something needs to spark first for that to happen.
Yeah. Gareth, let's move on to the world of boxing as a whole. We saw this week, I know you mentioned it briefly in your article today, Inoue. How good is this man? He moves up, he takes on number one in the division, Stephen Fulton. Fulton, all night, we knew that going into that fight, you know, he was still the underdog, but we knew how credible he was. And now he just went in there and he just seems to make, other than that sort of first and air fight, he just makes everything look so easy.
Well, he does. He's extremely talented, and until probably till the early hours of our morning Sunday, he's the number one pound for pound till one of these other two wins. He's extraordinarily talented. Like you say, the four weight division rise from 107, 108 pounds to 122 pounds as a world champion against the very best. I
Yes.
hasten to add, not just
Yes.
becoming
Yeah,
a
no,
world
no, yeah.
champion against the very best, marks him out as probably one of Japan's greatest boxers ever.
Yeah.
One of a modern great. And like you say, his I hope I can use the word kamikaze. I hope it's not a bad word these days, but his his almost his kamikaze finishes, his assassin, his ninja,
Sensational, yeah.
his ninja finishes. Seeing that open door against Fulton, what a finish!
Yeah.
Just boom, like a spear, and then just finishing it off and the step over, or the step away. Quite extraordinary. Amazing talent, an amazing athlete as well, which these two are tonight.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing guy. I think Top Rank have done a great job of keeping him in Japan, because I think if they were traveling with him around the world, he probably wouldn't have the rhythms that he's got. He's a freakish puncher. He's just extraordinary. He's a nailed down Hall of Famer. But to carry that up four weight divisions, the big thing for me now, I mean, I chased Brad Jacobs and Todd DeBuff for an answer after the win, said featherweight now, surely. And they were like, nah, we'll let him do a little bit at super feather first, at super bantam
Yeah.
first. Did I just say super feather? I mean feather,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I mean feather. We'll let him ride a little bit at super bantam. But imagine him against a Lee Wood in the UK now, or like when you think that there are guys at featherweight that could have extraordinary fights with him.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if they put him in with Michael Conlon. He's with Top Rank. I think, who's the other champion at Super Bantam? The name escapes me right now.
Tapayas.
Yeah, they'll put him in with him next. So
Undisputed.
if he can undisputed, they'll do that, I'm sure. But they'll probably get the guy to go to Japan.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's it's just incredible what he can do. And I thought the same. I thought, Fulton undefeated. What is it? 22 knockouts in 25 fights now, undefeated in Inoue. And to do it at that weight, those weights just extraordinary.
I saw one clip this morning, and I've been watching it on repeat. And it's Inoue steps in and throws a jab to the body, and Fulton counters it. And on his way out, Inoue doesn't look up, has his head down, and still comes out after throwing the jab to the body and throws this looping left hook.
Yeah.
Almost reverse the counter. I mean, it was just absolutely like, this guy is just phenomenal.
It's genius. There are genius moves from him, that are on the, I think, on the Lomachenko levels, but not as showy,
Yes.
because like I said, he ninjas in, doesn't he? No, it's extraordinary. It's just like you say, you can just watch it over and over again and just think, God, how does he actually do that in that moment? With everything that goes on around these guys in the biggest fights with so much at stake. No, it was an extraordinary, and it's always a delight to watch a bit of live boxing
on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. It was Tuesday afternoon, indeed. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Conor Benn has been cleared by UKAD 1 year on from the first failed test. Obviously, it didn't come out properly until fight week, but UKAD have released their statement. He is clear to fight in the UK. The British Board of Control came out this morning and gave a bit of a nothing statement, in all honesty, basically saying that more to come. But on his terms, he is now free to fight within the UK.
Yeah, what they've lifted the sanction on him. They've lifted the suspension. Yeah. I think cleared him is quite strong. They haven't made a statement said they've cleared him.
Okay.
They've lifted the suspension. So, and they've also said that they have the right to appeal in 21 days. So It's very good news for him, you know. And I know there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there with a lot of people. I mean, the narrative arc for Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn now is get a license, get a fight. And obviously, it's going to be fascinating. The bomb may go off when they apply to the Boxing Board of Control for a license now, or for the license back, because at the moment, Boxing Board of Control are going with UKAD. The trouble is with this, while a case is ongoing. So, for those listening or watching, the way that this process, UKAD are like the prosecution in a court case, and Conor Benn's team are like the defence in a court case, and the sporting resolutions are the tribunal. Now, it's the tribunal group that have taken Benn's case. And as we know, or as we're led to believe, because I'm not being talked to by his team at the moment, but from what I know and have read and have heard, the metabolites in his system, the case they put forward in their defence, is that the metabolites have come from food, not from a pill.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which is clears him in a sense, And if they accept that, and which they probably have, then it gives him the right to go back and fight. All I've advocated the whole time in this, and I know, I'll be obviously like Conor Benn won't do an interview with me at the moment, but I hope to speak to him at some point. I've never had anything against him. All I advocated was to do a hearing, and not say I'm not doing a hearing, all those things for this whole time. I'm so pleased for him because his mental health will not be suffering now. I'm pleased for his team that they've stuck with it, but I don't think it's fully over. What we need is UKAD to confirm that they're not appealing it, and then the board to confirm they're going to give him a license back. What is possible for him now is he's got he can get a license, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a UK license, does it? But it would be good if he got the UK license, and then everything is back on board with the Boxing Board of Control. It's taken a long time. It may have taken a long time to get this far with his doctors and his scientists and his research and all those, not his, but people doing it for him. It must have been a very difficult time. But I think, I've said what I've said the whole way along, which is have a hearing, clear your name properly. Don't just say, I'm not having a hearing, I'm innocent. Because somehow, somewhere, there was clomiphene in his system. If you remember, they were questioning the testing system itself at the time, that there was a mistake in the labs. And when the WBC put forward it could have been from eggs, that was rejected, first of all. So it's been a complex 10 months. But the thing is, at the time, that fight could not have gone ahead, in my view. It wasn't right for this. It wasn't necessarily about Conor. It wasn't right for the sport of boxing. In an inherently dangerous sport, you need a testing system where if something shows up, you need the veracity of that system, because people can't go on and fight. There might have been a mistake and it might have been proven later, and they get remuneration through it, or whatever the situation is, but you can't allow a fight to go ahead if someone's tested positive for a banned substance, in my view.
How do you think Team Eubank will be feeling right now? We are under the impression that the reason that they went with the Smith fight was just because they couldn't keep on waiting. Obviously, shortly after it comes out that Conor's clear. We're told by Eddie and Frank that Kell and Eubank desperately wanted it to be the Benn fight. We probably know that there's more money in that fight. A bit of a hard pill.
Well, there's definitely more money in that fight now because it's a much bigger fight. I mean, the names of the two men have got bigger, and the name of Conor Benn's got bigger in this whole process, which he'll benefit from, by the way. Weirdly, not that he'd want to go through that, but he will benefit. Look, I cannot see them dropping the Liam Smith fight now, if that's where you're headed.
No,
because they've committed to
I
it.
don't expect that. But just a bit of a sickener for them to take, maybe, perhaps.
Maybe, but we don't know what's going to happen with Conor Benn over the next few weeks. Let's see what Eddie Hearn announces now with Conor Benn. I suspect they'll look for a Kell Brook fight.
At 154?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, 154, yeah.
How big is that fight?
Well, it's very big because Conor Benn's coming back. Let's see what controversy surrounds it now on the way back. Let's see what the board's reaction is to Conor Benn applying for the new license or the license back. What if they say no because the case isn't finished yet? The proverbial could hit the fan over the next few weeks. I don't think it will ultimately. I think he will get his license back. I think he will box in the UK. I think it will be Kell Brook, and it wouldn't surprise me if that fight takes place in 6 or 7 weeks' time, 8 weeks' time. Wouldn't surprise me. What Conor Benn's been training behind the scenes. Kell Brook's desperate for a fight. He's only getting older. I think Kell Brook fancies it, I reckon.
Yeah.
You could do that. It's a big fight. It's a big fight, yes. For in media terms, in news terms, and again, there's a lot of crossover appeal to that.
Gareth, on the Eubank front, we found out last night that Roy Jones Jr. will not be training him for the Liam Smith fight, the rematch. Was that a bit of a surprise? We're just over a month out. It was only announced sort of within the last couple of weeks. We don't know who Eubank's training with.
Yeah.
It's always a bit of a strange case with Eubank Jr.
Is that a statement or a question?
Yeah. What sort of your thoughts on him?
I mean,
Roy Jones and
I think look, he's an unusual character. He does things his own way. I think you're right. But he could well train with Ronnie Davies for the next month, or could have been training with him. We haven't seen much of him. I think he's been very quiet leading into this, apart from the rounds of promoting it. Yeah. I think his father will have some kind of say. I hope they're reunited before the fight. Yeah, maybe it's run its course. Maybe boxers always have, or not always, but generally, when they go through a difficult patch or something doesn't go their way, they do sometimes cut with trainers. I mean, I think they were slightly taken out of context, and Joshua was talking for 10 hours the other day, but there was that one comment about Rob McCracken not teaching. He was hit too much, not taught defensively. But AJ was a different fighter then, and I think under a different. They're very influential trainers, and I think under different trainers you learn different things. And maybe Chris has come to the conclusion that he isn't Roy Jones. Like aping Roy Jones is not the best thing for him. That he needs to have a tough guard going into this, keep his hands higher, and box his way into the fight. I'm still fascinated by the second fight because we'd never seen Eubank in that kind of trouble before.
No. All right, well then it says we've got 4 minutes left.
Well, let's go now then while we've got 4 minutes left. Let's get out of the building while we can.
It makes sense to quickly bring him up.
Who?
Anthony Joshua, not next week, the week after. He has that rematch 7-8 years on with Dillian Whyte. I'm excited. There was a lot of talk online, as always with big fights like this, as to how big it would be. It sold out very quickly. We know that DAZN is still fairly new in the UK. How much of an impact will that have on pay-per-view buys? But all in all, fair to say that it is a big fight, Gareth?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's always been a big fight. It's a big fight for both men. There's so much jeopardy. It's even bigger that Joshua's taking it with that carrot of Deontay Wilder being dangled in Saudi Arabia. God, it's a really big fight. It's a big fight for Joshua's mind, for his resume. He seems to be putting out there that he's going to outbox Dillian Whyte. He's going to be drawn into a slugging match at some point by Whyte.
He has to, yeah.
Whyte's going to walk into him. I think it's a good fight for him right now. And it's a good fight for Whyte as well, because he can put himself in the mix if he pulls off some catastrophic end for Joshua in the fight. I don't think it's going 12 rounds, but you never know with these two. They could fence each other for a couple of rounds, have a phony war, then the real war breaks out. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to fight week. To kind of raw, kind of young prize fighters they were 7.5 years ago, knocking 6 bells out of each other in a bloodlust for 7 rounds. And they showed a lot of maturity at the press conference a few weeks ago. You were there, weren't you? And it was good to see them and mark the change in them. Yeah, it's a really big fight. When you got two British heavyweights who are both in the top 10 in the world, and you could even say in the top 6 or 7 in the world, fighting each other. Come on, it's big. These are the giants of our sport, and it's a great time coming up. August 12th, August 26th, September 23. October 28th, even. And I'm happy to be involved in all of it because it's a great time. Because in 2 years' time, and then we can make our comments about who they fought and who they didn't, who really ended the era as the number one, through legacy. We'll look back on this era and say, right, who's coming now? So you're involved in a great time. It's a great time to be involved with these guys, and it's going to be a great couple of months.
Well, Gareth, as always, thank you very much for your time. I think you summed it up perfectly at the end. A lot of time last year, we questioned the sport. We questioned some of the big fights not being made. I think this year, that's not the case. I think boxing has delivered this year. Always a pleasure speaking to you. Look forward to listening to you on the radio later on. And I'm sure everyone watching this will be tuned in the early hours of the morning to watch Errol Spence take on Terence Crawford for the undisputed title. Gareth A. Davies, thank you very much, my friend.